When the Malarian government sent out a desperate call for help, they expected the usual galactic response. Maybe a medical freighter, a few crates of ration packs, and a sternly worded diplomatic message. Their world was collapsing under a brutal mercenary siege, but in the galaxy, aid always moved at the speed of bureaucracy. What they didn't expect was the sky to split open just 72 hours later, revealing an entire human battle group. Hundreds of ships, drop pods raining down like meteors, orbital hospitals larger than cities, and soldiers who looked like walking tanks, because humans don't do half measures. When a Deathworld species like humanity decides to help, they don't send crates, they send fleets. In a galaxy where diplomacy is cautious and resources are measured by committees, Earth's answer was overwhelming. Stabilize the planet, evacuate the wounded, secure the orbit, rebuild infrastructure, and annihilate every mercenary who dared to open fire on civilians. It wasn't just aid. It was a force of nature disguised as a humanitarian mission. And for the first time, the galaxy understood. Deathworlders don't just survive. They dominate every battlefield, including the ones fought in the name of peace. The call. The planet Malaria had seen war before, but nothing like this. Once a peaceful agricultural world on the edge of the Trevaran cluster, Malaria now burned. Orbital stations were reduced to wreckage. Cities collapsed into ash under orbital bombardment. Civilian communication arrays choked with cries for help, jammed with overlapping frequencies of desperation. The attackers weren't a formal army, they were worse. A coalition of mercenary warbands, funded and armed by rival corporations, had swept in to destabilize Malaria's economy and seize control of its vast mineral-rich plains. The planetary militia was outgunned, outmaneuvered, and hopelessly unprepared. In a sealed command bunker beneath the capital, Grand Coordinator Ajtak sent one last message on the diplomatic band. To the human coalition of systems. This is Malaria. We request humanitarian support. Any assistance your coalition can spare. He didn't expect an answer. Not from humans. For all their power, humans were feared, respected, but not trusted. In galactic politics, Earth was the anomaly. A Deathworld whose people had evolved in a predator-rich, gravity-heavy, resource-scarce environment. Their bodies were stronger, their reflexes sharper, and their survival instincts unmatched. They were regarded like a loaded weapon, never pointed unless necessary. They were not known for restraint. The response Earth received the signal 12 minutes later. In a command center hovering in geosynchronous orbit above Earth, Admiral Karen Reyes narrowed her eyes at the incoming data. She didn't see political complexity. She saw numbers, civilian casualty projections, infrastructure degradation, biocontamination risks, planetary destabilization index. She tapped once on her interface. Activate Protocol Helios, she said. An aide blinked. Ma'am, that's a Category 6 deployment. They didn't ask for rations, Reyes replied. They asked for help. And Earth didn't do help. Halfway. Deployment. The fleet left orbit within 19 hours. Led by the carrier Mercy's Edge, Battle Group Orion launched with 6 planetary assault carriers, 12 medical cruisers equipped with full triage and surgical, Bays 32, defensive frigate, 112 drop pods with 8,000 powered infantry units, 1 terraforming module for rapid infrastructure deployment, and 6 logistical support vessels carrying food, water, and power generators. It wasn't an invasion. It was a planetary reset button. Other species in the galaxy might send emissaries or relief ships. But humans understood something others didn't. Chaos wasn't a diplomatic problem. It was a logistics problem. And humans were terrifyingly good at logistics. In just 48 hours, Earth's response team became the largest humanitarian presence in Malaria's history. First contact. When the fleet arrived, they didn't ask permission to land. They sent a transmission. This is Admiral Reyes of the Human Coalition Fleet. We are assuming full humanitarian operations. Stand down and direct your forces to Rendezvous Point Delta. Do not resist. We are here to help. The Malarian leadership, weary and broken, simply complied. The alien mercenary warbands, however, laughed, until drop pods began slamming into the atmosphere like thunderbolts. Each pod was a self-contained shock unit, 8 humans clad in exo-reactive armor, trained in both warfighting and civilian protection. Their mission was not conquest, but control. Establish safe zones, clear hostile forces, and stabilize the urban centers. In city after city, the same pattern emerged. Chaos reigned. Then the pods fell. Mercenary troops found themselves outmatched by soldiers who moved like ghosts, coordinated with drones, and never, ever hesitated. They didn't shoot to kill, a captured mercenary commander later admitted. They shot to end the fight. I lost a platoon in 32 seconds. They never raised their voices, just silenced everything. Aid, the human way. Humanity's idea of aid wasn't limited to rations and water. Within 72 hours of orbital insertion, the following had occurred. 100,000 liters of potable water were distributed via automated purification stations. 6 field hospitals were built and fully operational. $1.3 million. Malarian civilians were evacuated from combat zones. Entire city sectors were powered using mobile fusion cores. Atmospheric filters were deployed to clear ash and chemical toxins. A no-fly zone enforced by orbital drones reduced remaining attacks. To 0, humans deployed artificial intelligence systems to manage refugee distribution. Drones scanned for collapsed structures and used 3D mapped layouts to guide rescue workers. Multi-limbed robotic assistants performed surgeries on site where hospitals were overrun. Where a city lay in ruins on day 1, prefab housing stood by. Day 5, where famine loomed, soil-seeding robots fertilized new crop beds. To the Malarians, this wasn't aid. This was resurrection, fear and doubt. Not everyone welcomed the humans. Across the Galactic Council, fear spread like wildfire. They sent a fleet, Senator Vurak shouted during emergency session. A full fleet, for one planet. They brought weapons platforms to a famine, said another. They're building loyalty, whispered a third, not goodwill. Others disagreed. If you were dying, countered Senator Zavani of the Itral League, would you complain that your doctor was too fast? It wasn't the first time humanity had responded like this. They had ended the plague on Narcissus 9 by blockading the planet, quarantining entire cities, and deploying aerial nanodispersers to sterilize contaminated zones in under a week. They had stopped a pirate uprising in the Belcora Belt, not by bombing the pirates, but by surrounding them with so many relief vessels and surveillance drones that their supply chains collapsed. To Earth, the line between war and humanitarian relief was paper thin. Sometimes, the only way to protect the innocent was to overwhelm the guilty. Battle at Junessa Ridge. The last stand of the mercenaries took place at Junessa Ridge, where they attempted to retreat with stolen Malarian tech and captives. The human fleet intercepted a surgical strike team deployed under dusk skies. No air support. Just 30 soldiers, 2 recon drones, and a gravity inhibitor device that froze. Escape shuttles mid-launch. "You're not here to fight?" asked the captured warband leader. "We're here to end the fighting," replied Captain Madiose. 0 casualties on the human side. 48 mercenaries captured, hostages rescued. All in 17 minutes. Rebuilding trust weeks passed. The humans didn't leave. They rebuilt infrastructure, trained local defense forces, and slowly transferred authority back to Malarian hands. Their soldiers patrolled not as occupiers, but as peacekeepers. And when the Malarian Council requested the human command reduce its presence, Admiral Reyes agreed. They had come in full force, but they also knew when to stand down. "You gave us back more than our cities," Ajtak told her. "You gave us back belief." Reyes smiled. "Next time, just call us sooner." "That's what worries the Council," Ajtak added. "You didn't hesitate." "Why would we?" she said. "We're Deathworlders. If we're going to help, we help." Lessons for the galaxy in the months that followed. Hundreds of worlds revised their aid protocols. New alliance treaties were written with rapid humanitarian mobilization clauses, modeled after Earth's example. Old rivals reconsidered their assumptions about Deathworlders, not as unpredictable brutes, but as masters of crisis control. Some feared the precedent. Others admired it, but none could deny the results. Malaria was now not only stabilized but flourishing, and it had a permanent monument in its capital, a statue of a human medic lifting a malarian child from rubble. At its base, the inscription read, "They didn't come to conquer, they came because we asked, and they answered, with a fleet." The Deathworlder doctrine. Why did Earth respond the way it did? Because humans came from a world where hesitation meant death. On Earth, wildfires moved faster than sound. Storms collapsed cities in hours. Predators stalked silently. And survival wasn't granted. It was earned. Every day. That upbringing bred a species that moved fast, planned deeply, and always overprepared. In space, those instincts didn't change. They evolved. Earth didn't do symbolic aid. It didn't send a few crates and hope for the best. It sent engineers, medics, analysts, drones, power cells, terraforming equipment, supply chains, fleet escorts, and, if necessary, weapons, not to impose order, but to restore it. Epilogue. 1 year later, a small colony in the Tarvis Reach sends.